There's a liquid sitting in the condiment aisle of every grocery store in this country that kills black mold down to the root and prevents it from growing back. It costs less than $1 per application. It has been documented in microbiology research as a potent antifungal agent since 1953. And it outperforms the one product that every hardware store, every contractor, and every mold remediation company in America has been telling you to use for the past 70 years. Bleach. The product the entire cleaning industry trained you to reach for when you see black mold creeping across your bathroom ceiling or crawling up the drywall in your basement does not kill mold on porous surfaces. It never has. Bleach kills the surface color. It turns black mold white so you think it is gone. But the root system, the living network of filaments burrowed deep into the wood, the grout, the drywall paper, and the caulk beneath the surface, survives every single bleach application you have ever sprayed in your home. Within 2 to 4 weeks, the mold grows back through the bleached surface darker and more aggressive than before. And you spray again, and it comes back again. And the cycle repeats until you call a remediation company that charges you $3,000 to $10,000 to rip out the wall, bag it in plastic, and haul it to a landfill. Meanwhile, a spray bottle of white distilled vinegar, the same bottle your grandmother used to clean windows and rinse produce, penetrates porous material at the molecular level and destroys the fungal colony from the inside out. No regrowth, no repeat treatment. No 5-figure invoice from a man in a respirator mask. The mold remediation industry generates over $6 billion in annual revenue in the United States alone. A $1 spray that kills the colony permanently and prevents its return is a direct threat to that entire revenue model. They did not stop recommending it because it failed. They stopped talking about it because it made the callback visit disappear. This is the story of the $1 spray that the mold industry buried, and the bleach myth they built to keep you buying, spraying, and calling. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If these investigations matter to you, subscribe and hit the bell. This is where we crack open the vaults the industry welded shut. Now let me take you back to where this science was first documented and then deliberately left to collect dust. In 1953, researchers studying antimicrobial compounds at food science laboratories across the United States and Europe published findings confirming what fermentation chemists had observed for centuries. Acetic acid, the primary active compound in vinegar, demonstrated broad-spectrum antifungal activity against multiple genera of mold, including Aspergillus, Penicillium, and Stachybotrys. That last name is the one you know. Stachybotrys cardarum, black mold. The species that grows in water, damaged buildings, produces mycotoxins linked to respiratory illness, and generates more panic in American homeowners than any other organism growing inside residential walls. The research confirmed that acetic acid at concentrations at between 4 and 8%, which is exactly the concentration range of standard grocery store white vinegar, killed fungal colonies on contact and inhibited regrowth on treated surfaces for extended periods. The mechanism was straightforward. Acetic acid penetrates the cell membrane of fungal organisms and disrupts the internal pH balance that the mold requires to sustain metabolic function. The cells rupture. The colony dies. Not at the surface level. Through the entire depth of the organism, including the hyphae, the branching root like filaments that anchor the mold into whatever material it has colonized. But this research landed in food science and microbiology journals, not in home improvement magazines, not in hardware store pamphlets, and certainly not on the label of any product sold in the cleaning aisle of your grocery store. Because by 1953, the American cleaning product industry had already chosen its champion, sodium hypochlorite, bleach, and an entire economy had been built around it. Now let me show you the science that the remediation contractor standing in your basement hopes you never learn. Here's exactly why bleach fails on mold and why every bottle you have ever sprayed on a porous surface made the problem worse. Bleach is a water-based solution containing sodium hypochlorite as the active disinfecting agent. The sodium hypochlorite molecule is large. It sits on the surface of whatever material you spray it on and oxidizes the pigment in the mold's outer cell structure. That oxidation is what turns black mold white. You see the color vanish and you believe the mold is dead. But sodium hypochlorite cannot penetrate porous materials. It is too molecularly bulky to travel into the microscopic channels of wood grain, drywall paper, concrete pores, or grout lines. It bleaches the surface and stops. Meanwhile, the water base of the bleach solution does penetrate. Water is a tiny molecule. It soaks straight through the surface and delivers moisture directly to the root system of the fungal colony living inside the material. You just fed the mold. You killed the visible surface layer and irrigated the invisible root network in a single spray. That is why the mold always comes back darker and faster after a bleach treatment. You removed its competition on the surface and delivered fresh water to the survivors underground. This is not disputed science. The EPA removed bleach from its recommended mold cleanup methods years ago. The agency's own guidance documents for mold remediation in residential buildings do not list sodium hypochlorite as an effective agent for porous materials. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration published similar guidance noting that bleach is not recommended for mold cleanup on porous surfaces. But walk into any hardware store in America and ask the employee in the paint aisle how to kill mold in your bathroom. 9 out of 10 will point you to the bleach aisle. That recommendation is not based on science. It is based on 70 years of marketing momentum that the cleaning industry has never had a financial reason to correct. A customer who keeps buying bleach and keeps failing to kill the mold is a customer who eventually upgrades to a branded mold-killing spray at 4 times the price, and then eventually calls a remediation company at 500 times the price. The failure of bleach is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Now compare that to what white vinegar does on the same surface. Acetic acid is a small molecule. When you spray vinegar onto a moldy grout line, a water-stained baseboard, or a section of drywall paper colonized by stachybo trees, the acetic acid does not sit on the surface. It wicks into the porous material through capillary action, traveling the same microscopic channels that the mold's hyphae used to colonize the substrate in the first place. The acid follows the mold's own root network into the material and kills it at every depth the colony has reached. The surface dies. The subsurface dies. The anchoring filaments die. The reproductive spore structures die. And because acetic acid leaves a residual low pH environment on the treated surface, the conditions that mold requires to reestablish a colony are suppressed for weeks to months after a single application. One spray, $1. Colony death from surface to root with a built-in chemical barrier against regrowth that no bleach product on the market has ever delivered. Before we go deeper, I need to stop and tell you something. Everything I just revealed about vinegar and mold chemistry is only one chapter in a much larger book. I have spent months compiling every technique and every method that corporations across multiple industries have deliberately buried. All of it lives inside the forbidden camping vault, the complete home maintenance blueprint that eliminates the 5 most expensive contractor visits the average homeowner faces, the water heater flush protocol that saves $4,000 per decade in premature replacement costs, the battery restoration procedure using a $1 powder that the auto industry buried 50 years ago, the headlight restoration formula, the engine light diagnostic protocol, the full off-grid blueprint, the 72-hour blackout checklist, the forbidden firecraft manual, plus pest elimination methods, food preservation techniques, and over 10 additional guides in one single vault. The link is in the description, and there is a QR code on your screen right now. Go open the vault before we continue, but do not close this video. Stay with me. We are barely past the surface. Now stay with me, because the financial anatomy of the mold industry is the part that should make every homeowner in this country close their browser and walk straight to the grocery store. The average professional mold remediation job in the United States costs between $1,500 and $9,000. Severe infestations involving multiple rooms or structural materials can exceed $30,000. The national average sits around $3,200 for a standard residential job, according to Home Services industry data. That average job involves a team of 2 to 4 workers arriving in full protective equipment, setting up floor-to-ceiling plastic containment barriers sealed with tape, running negative air pressure machines to prevent spore migration, removing affected drywall, or sealing material down to the framing, bagging and hauling the debris to a certified disposal site, treating the exposed framing with antimicrobial solution, and replacing the removed material with new drywall, tape, mud, paint, and finish work. Now here is what the remediation contractor will never tell you during the estimate walkthrough. The antimicrobial solution they spray on the exposed wood framing after removing the moldy drywall is, in many cases, a commercial-grade acid-based fungicide whose primary mechanism of action is identical to acetic acid. They kill the residual mold on the framing by lowering the surface pH below the threshold that fungal organisms can tolerate, the exact same mechanism that a spray bottle of white vinegar achieves on a treated surface for less than $1. The difference is that by the time the remediation crew reaches the framing, they have already billed you $2,000 in demolition labor, $500 in containment materials, and $800 in disposal fees to remove drywall that, in many cases, could have been saved if the mold had been killed at the root level, before it spread deep enough to compromise the structural paper facing. Early intervention with vinegar on the first visible sign of mold growth can prevent the colony from reaching the stage where material removal becomes necessary. But nobody in the remediation industry profits from early intervention. They profit from late-stage discovery, maximum material removal, and the fear that mold is too dangerous for a homeowner to address without professional equipment. The mold remediation industry runs on the same engine as every other service industry we have exposed on this channel. Recurring revenue built on consumer ignorance. A homeowner who sprays vinegar on mold at first sight and kills the colony for $1 is a homeowner who never dials the remediation company. A homeowner who understands that bleach does not work on porous surfaces is a homeowner who stops cycling through the spray and fail and spray again, loop that eventually funnels them into a $5,000 service call. And a homeowner who treats their bathroom, basement, and attic with vinegar twice a year as a preventive measure is a customer that the entire mold services industry has permanently lost. If you have made it this far, you already know more about mold biology and remediation economics than 99% of homeowners in this country. Subscribe and share this with someone who's about to spend $5,000 on a problem they could have killed for the price of a bottle of salad dressing. Everything the mold industry buried is inside the complete vault. The link is in the description. Now here is exactly what to do, step by step. Go to any grocery store and buy a gallon of standard white distilled vinegar. 5% acetic acid concentration is printed on the label. That is the effective concentration confirmed in published research. Do not dilute it. Pour the vinegar directly into a clean spray bottle with no water added. Full strength is critical because diluting reduces the acetic acid concentration below the threshold needed to kill Stachybotrys and other resilient mold species at the root level. Step 1. Open windows and turn on exhaust fans in the affected room to establish airflow. Put on a basic N95 respirator mask, which costs $1 to $2 at any hardware store. Mold spores become airborne when disturbed, and inhaling them in concentrated quantities can cause respiratory irritation, especially in people with asthma or compromised immune systems. The mask is not optional for this step. Step 2. Spray the affected surface thoroughly with undiluted white vinegar until the moldy area is visibly wet and saturated. Do not wipe immediately. This is where most people fail. The vinegar needs contact time to penetrate the porous surface, reach the subsurface hyphae, and disrupt the cellular pH of the entire colony. Let the vinegar sit on the surface for a minimum of 60 minutes. 90 minutes is better. The longer the acetic acid dwells inside the material, the deeper it travels and the more completely it kills. Step 3. After the dwell time, scrub the surface firmly with a stiff bristle brush. You will see the dead mold lift off in dark clumps. Wipe the residue away with a clean cloth dampened in fresh vinegar, not water. Using water to rinse reintroduces the moisture conditions that invited mold colonization in the first place. Step 4. Let the surface air dry completely with ventilation running. The residual vinegar smell dissipates within a few hours as the acetic acid evaporates, but the pH alteration left on the treated surface persists for weeks, creating a hostile chemical environment that prevents new spore germination. Step 5. Identify and eliminate the moisture source that caused the mold growth in the first place. Mold cannot colonize a dry surface. If the source is a leaking pipe, fix the pipe. If it is condensation from poor ventilation, install or repair the exhaust fan. If it is water intrusion from outside, address the flashing, the gutter, or the grating that is directing water toward your foundation. Vinegar kills the colony. Eliminating the water source prevents the next one. Step 6. As a preventive maintenance protocol, spray all moisture-prone surfaces in your home with undiluted vinegar once every 3 to 6 months. Bathroom ceilings, shower grout, basement walls, windowsills in humid rooms, and the underside of kitchen sink cabinets. 30 seconds of spraying every few months creates a persistent antifungal barrier that stops mold before it ever becomes visible. Total cost per year for whole house mold prevention is under $5. Now, I need to be completely honest with you about one critical limitation, because that honesty is what separates this channel from the industry that profits from your fear. If your mold infestation has already spread behind drywall across large sections of wall cavity, if you can see structural wood framing that is soft and crumbling when you press it with a screwdriver, or if you discover mold covering more than 10 square feet of contiguous surface, you may be dealing with a colony that has compromised the structural material itself. At that stage, material removal may genuinely be necessary because the substrate the mold colonized has been physically degraded beyond recovery. The EPA's own guidance suggests that mold patches exceeding 10 square feet may warrant professional assessment. But the critical distinction the industry does not volunteer is that the vast majority of residential mold problems are caught at the early stage. A dark patch on the grout, a black smudge spreading across the bathroom ceiling, a musty smell behind the cabinet under the kitchen sink. At that stage, a $1 bottle of vinegar applied correctly kills the colony completely and prevents the escalation that turns a surface problem into a $5,000 structural remediation project. The entire financial model of the mold remediation industry depends on late-stage discovery. They do not profit from early kills. They profit from colonies that were allowed to spread because the homeowner kept spraying bleach that whitened the surface and watered the roots until the damage reached a scale that only demolition could address. This knowledge did not disappear because the chemistry stopped working. It was never distributed because a $1 bottle of vinegar does not generate a callback invoice. Every single bathroom in America grows mold eventually. Every basement with marginal ventilation sees it creeping across the concrete by the second winter. And every single one of those colonies could be killed permanently at first sight with a liquid that has been sitting next to the olive oil since before you were born. The mold did not change. The vinegar did not change. The only thing that changed is who profits from your reaching for the wrong bottle. White vinegar is still sitting on that shelf right now. Still $2 a gallon. Still waiting for you to remember what the cleaning industry spent 70 years making you forget. If this video made a difference, subscribe and share it with every homeowner, every renter, and every landlord you know who is still spraying bleach on a problem that bleach was never capable of solving. Every share preserves what the industry tried to erase from public awareness. Every subscription keeps this vault open for the next person who needs it. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside it is even heavier than what was growing behind that wall.